There's a fundamental difference between confidence and cockiness, yet so many people confuse the two. Confidence is quiet, it's steady, it's unshaken by the need for validation. Cockiness, on the other hand, is loud. It seeks attention. It craves recognition. And ironically, the more someone needs to prove they're confident, the less confident they actually are. Think about the people you naturally gravitate toward. They don't walk into a room and demand attention. They don't try to dominate the conversation, interrupting others just to prove they're the smartest person there. They don't need to boast about their achievements or constantly remind people of their success. Instead, they carry themselves with a quiet assurance. They speak with intention, not to impress, but to contribute. They don't need to be the loudest in the room because they understand that true influence isn't about volume, it's about presence. Confidence comes from a deep sense of self-worth. It's built through experience, through struggle, through the moments when no one is watching. It's knowing that you have value even if no one is applauding. Cockiness, however, is fragile. It's built on external validation, on the need for others to constantly reassure you of your worth. It's performative. And because it relies on outside approval, it's easily shaken. The moment that validation is taken away, cockiness crumbles. We see this all the time in leadership. The best leaders don't have to prove they're in charge. They don't have to make people feel small to assert their authority. They lead with humility. They create an environment where others feel seen, heard, and valued. Cocky leaders, on the other hand, micromanage. They take credit for everything. They believe that power comes from controlling people rather than empowering them. And in doing so, they push others away. True confidence allows you to celebrate others without feeling threatened. It allows you to listen without the need to immediately insert your opinion. It allows you to acknowledge when you don't know something because your self-worth isn't tied to always being right. Confidence isn't about proving yourself. It's about knowing yourself. We live in a world where everyone is speaking, but few are listening. We are constantly bombarded with information, social media updates, endless notifications, conversations that often feel like competitions to see who can talk the most or the loudest. But in the middle of all this noise, the rarest and most attractive trait a person can have is the ability to truly listen. Listening is not the same as hearing. Hearing is passive. It requires no effort. It happens automatically. But listening, real listening, is active. It requires presence. It requires patience. And most importantly, it requires an intentional shift away from the instinct to respond and toward the desire to understand. Most of us think we're listening when, in reality, we're just waiting for our turn to speak. We're crafting our response in our minds, thinking about what we want to say next, or even anticipating how we'll steer the conversation in a direction that favors us. In doing so, we miss what's actually being said. We miss the nuances in someone's tone, the unspoken emotions hiding beneath their words, the moments of hesitation that reveal more than the words themselves. There is something profoundly attractive about a person who listens, because when someone listens to us, we feel valued, we feel seen, we feel understood. And that feeling is powerful. People don't remember every word you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. And the feeling of being heard is one of the most magnetic things a person can experience. Listening is an art. It's about more than just keeping quiet while someone else talks. It's about engagement. It's about curiosity. It's about giving someone the space to express themselves without interruption or judgment. When you listen with real intent, you're not just hearing someone's words. You're paying attention to their emotions, their fears, their excitement, and the things they may not even be saying outright. Think about the last conversation you had where you truly felt heard. Chances are, it wasn't with the person who gave you advice before you even finished explaining your situation. It wasn't with the person who related everything you said back to their own experiences. It was with the person who simply let you speak, who nodded in understanding, who asked thoughtful questions, who made you feel like, for that moment, nothing else in the world mattered except what you had to say. That kind of listening is rare. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. We are wired for connection. As human beings, we seek relationships, friendships, and communities where we feel like we belong. But here's the thing, belonging isn't about fitting in. It's not about conforming to what we think people want us to be. It's about being accepted for who we truly are. And yet so many people spend their lives wearing masks, carefully curating an image that they believe will make them more likable, more impressive, more attractive. But pretending is exhausting. It requires constant effort. It means second-guessing yourself, adjusting your personality based on the situation, filtering your words to make sure you're saying what people want to hear. It means living in fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being enough. Fear of people discovering the real you and deciding they don't like what they see. And that fear keeps people at a distance. Because deep down, we all know when someone isn't being real with us. Authenticity, on the other hand, is magnetic. There is something undeniably attractive about a person who is comfortable in their own skin, who embraces their quirks, who doesn't try to be something they're not just to win approval. They don't shrink themselves to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. They don't mold their personality to match whoever they're around. They don't rely on external validation to feel worthy. Instead, they stand firm in their values, in their beliefs, in their unique way of seeing the world. People are drawn to authenticity because it is rare. In a world full of filters, facades, and carefully edited personas, a person who is unapologetically themselves is refreshing. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. They don't chase popularity or seek validation, and because of that, they naturally attract the right people, the ones who appreciate them for who they are, not for who they pretend to be. But authenticity isn't just about being yourself, it's about knowing yourself. It's about understanding what you stand for, what you believe in, and what matters to you. It's about recognizing your strengths and owning your flaws. It's about being honest, not only with others, but with yourself. And that kind of self-awareness creates confidence, not the kind of confidence that demands attention, but the kind that naturally commands respect. There's also a deep sense of trust that comes with authenticity. When someone is real, we feel safe around them. We know that what they say is what they mean. We don't have to guess what they're thinking or wonder if they have hidden motives. We don't have to decode their words, searching for the truth behind a carefully crafted facade. And that kind of trust is invaluable. It fosters deeper connections, stronger relationships, and a level of respect that no amount of pretending can ever achieve. The irony is that so many people hide their true selves because they think that's what will make them more likable. But in reality, the more authentic we are, the more we attract the people who genuinely appreciate us. The more we embrace who we are, the more confident we become. And the more real we are, the more effortlessly we stand out in a world that constantly pressures us to blend in. We've been taught that intelligence is about what we know, our ability to solve problems, to memorize facts, to think critically. But the most successful, the most respected, the most quietly attractive people in the world don't just have intellectual intelligence, and that is the real differentiator. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage not only your own emotions, but also the emotions of those around you. It's the ability to read the energy in a room, to sense when someone is holding something back, to know when to push forward and when to step back. It's what allows some people to navigate difficult conversations with grace, while others turn every disagreement into a battle. It's what makes some leaders deeply respected and others simply feared. It's what allows certain people to make those around them feel safe, heard, and valued, even without saying much at all. Most people operate on autopilot when it comes to emotions. They react rather than respond. They take things personally. They let their frustrations control them. They assume that their perspective is the only valid one. They don't pause to consider why someone might be acting a certain way, why someone might have snapped at them, why someone might be withdrawn or defensive. And because they lack that awareness, they struggle to build meaningful relationships, both personally and professionally. But a person with emotional intelligence, they don't react impulsively. They don't let fleeting emotions dictate their actions. They don't assume the worst in people. Instead, they observe. They listen, not just to words, but to tone, to body language, to the emotions that exist beneath the surface. They understand that every person they interact with is carrying something unseen: stress, insecurities, personal struggles, fears, and rather than responding with judgment, they respond with empathy. Empathy is a powerful thing. It's not about agreeing with everyone or excusing bad behavior. It's about seeking to understand. It's about recognizing that every reaction has a reason, that every person has a story, that every emotional outburst is rooted in something deeper. And when you approach people with that mindset, everything shifts. Instead of arguing to be right, you seek resolution. Instead of taking things personally, you ask yourself what else might be going on. Instead of shutting people down, you create space for them to express themselves. A person with emotional intelligence knows how to manage their own emotions as well. They don't let anger control them. They don't lash out when things don't go their way. They know when they need to step back and process their feelings before speaking. They know how to regulate their stress, how to recognize when their emotions are clouding their judgment, how to step outside of themselves long enough to gain perspective. That kind of control isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about understanding them. It's about recognizing that emotions are valuable signals, but they shouldn't dictate your behavior. It's about choosing your response rather than being a prisoner to your impulses. People with emotional intelligence also have a quiet confidence that sets them apart. They don't need to dominate conversations. They don't need to prove themselves through arrogance or bravado. They don't need to constantly be the center of attention. Instead, their presence speaks for itself. They draw people in because they make others feel understood, respected, and valued. They make people feel safe. And safety, true emotional safety, is one of the most attractive and powerful things a person can offer. But emotional intelligence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. It requires self-awareness. It requires practice. It requires a willingness to look inward, to reflect on your own patterns, to challenge your own assumptions, to develop a deeper understanding of yourself so that you can better understand others. It's a skill that, when mastered, changes not just the way people perceive you, but the way you experience the world. There is something deeply compelling about a person who knows why they do what they do. Not just what they do, not just how they do it, but why. The kind of person who moves with intention, who makes decisions based on something greater than personal gain, who wakes up every morning with a clear sense of direction. That kind of person draws others in, not because they seek attention, but because their energy, their conviction, their clarity of purpose is impossible to ignore. We live in a world where most people drift. They take jobs they don't love because it pays the bills. They follow paths laid out for them by parents, teachers, or society, never stopping to ask if it's what they actually want. They stay in situations that drain them simply because change feels too uncertain. And because they have no clear purpose guiding them, they move through life reactively rather than proactively. They chase short-term success, but feel empty when they get it. They accumulate accomplishments, but never experience true fulfillment. But then there are the rare few, the ones who operate differently, the ones who wake up with a sense of mission, whether their work is big or small, the ones who don't measure success in titles or income, but in impact. These people have something that can't be faked: clarity. And clarity is magnetic. Purpose isn't just about having a dream or setting goals. It's about knowing what truly matters to you. It's about understanding your values and aligning your actions with them. It's about making decisions not based on fear or convenience, but on meaning. And when a person has that kind of clarity, it shows. It shows in the way they speak, in the way they carry themselves, in the way they invest their time and energy. It shows in their persistence, in their ability to push through setbacks without losing sight of the bigger picture. People with purpose are not easily distracted. They don't waste energy trying to impress others or seek approval. They aren't pulled in 100 different directions because they know exactly what's worth their time. And that kind of certainty, that kind of deep-rooted belief in what they're doing makes them incredibly attractive. Purpose-driven people don't just inspire admiration, they inspire action. They challenge those around them to think differently, to question their own paths, to seek something deeper than just surface-level success. They make others want to be better, not through force or persuasion, but simply by example. But purpose isn't something that just falls into place one day. It's something you uncover. It's something you refine. It's something you build, step by step, through experiences, through curiosity, through the willingness to explore what excites you, what frustrates you, what moves you. It's found in moments of stillness, in deep reflection, in asking hard questions about what you want your life to stand for. And once you have it, once you operate from a place of purpose, everything changes. The way you interact with people, the way you handle adversity, the way you carry yourself in a room. You no longer seek validation, you radiate certainty. You no longer try to prove your worth, you embody it. You no longer chase people or opportunities that don't align with you, you attract the ones that do. Because when you have a strong enough why, the how becomes inevitable, and the people who are meant to walk alongside you will recognize it without you ever needing to convince them. True kindness is rare. Not the kind of kindness that comes with a price tag, not the kind that is given in hopes of getting something in return, but the kind that exists simply because it's the right thing to do, the kind that doesn't need recognition, that doesn't require an audience, that isn't transactional. That kind of kindness is powerful. That kind of kindness is magnetic. Most people approach kindness as a strategy. They do something nice with the unspoken expectation that it will be reciprocated. They give compliments hoping to receive one in return. They offer help expecting favors later. They show generosity, but only when they think someone is watching. And when their kindness isn't acknowledged, when their actions aren't returned in the way they expected, they feel resentful. But that's not kindness. That's a trade. Real kindness, kindness without expectation, doesn't keep score. It doesn't calculate whether the effort put in will be repaid. It doesn't get frustrated when it goes unnoticed. Because real kindness isn't about what you get. It's about who you are. It's about the way you move through the world, the way you make people feel, the way you leave every space just a little better than you found it. Think about the people who have had the greatest impact on your life, the ones who went out of their way for you when they didn't have to, the ones who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself, the ones who gave without asking, who supported you without conditions, who showed up for you without expecting anything in return. That kind of kindness sticks with us, it changes us, and it creates a ripple effect far beyond what we can see. But true kindness requires strength. It requires security in yourself because it means giving without needing external validation. It means doing the right thing even when no one will ever know. It means offering help not because it benefits you, but because you genuinely want to make someone's life a little easier. It means being kind even when you've been met with unkindness. And that is what makes it so rare. Most people hold their kindness back. They wait for others to deserve it. They withhold generosity until they see if it will be returned. They measure their compassion based on how they've been treated. But the people who are truly magnetic, the ones who stand out without even trying, are the ones who give freely, who understand that kindness isn't about what you get back, but about the kind of person you choose to be. And ironically, those who give without expectation are often the ones who receive the most, not in the form of transactions, but in the form of trust, of deep relationships, of an unshakable sense of self-worth. Because when you practice kindness without expecting anything in return, you build a life filled with genuine connections. People remember how you made them feel. They remember the small, quiet moments of generosity. They remember the way you showed up, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. Kindness without expectation is powerful because it is so rare. In a world where so many people act based on what they'll receive in return, someone who simply chooses to give without agenda, without manipulation, without keeping score, stands out in a way that words can't quite explain. It's the kind of presence that is felt, the kind of energy that lingers, the kind of impact that lasts long after the moment has passed. Respect is not something you demand. It's something you command. And the way you command respect has nothing to do with how loud you are, how forceful you can be, or how much authority you hold. It has everything to do with how you carry yourself, how you value yourself, and most importantly, how you set and enforce your boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what you will and will not tolerate. They are a reflection of your self-worth. They are the framework that protects your time, your energy, and your mental and emotional well-being. And yet, so many people struggle to set boundaries because they fear rejection. They fear being seen as difficult, as uncooperative, as selfish. They assume that by always saying yes, by always making themselves available, by always accommodating the needs of others, they will be liked. But there is a difference between being liked and being respected. People who lack boundaries are often taken for granted, not because others are intentionally cruel, but because when you fail to set limits, you unintentionally teach people that your time, your energy, and your needs are secondary. You teach them that you will tolerate being overworked, overlooked, or taken advantage of. You teach them that your comfort is negotiable. And in doing so, you lose a crucial element of self-respect. But a person with strong boundaries, they move differently. They don't over-explain their decisions. They don't feel guilty for prioritizing their well-being. They don't apologize for saying no. And that quiet confidence, rooted in self-respect, commands the respect of others. Boundaries are not walls. They are not about shutting people out or avoiding responsibility. They are about clarity. They communicate what you are willing to accept and what you are not. And the irony is that people who truly value and respect you will never be threatened by your boundaries. They will appreciate them because boundaries don't just protect you, they create healthier, stronger, and more honest relationships. When you set a boundary, you are not controlling others. You are simply deciding what behavior you will engage with. You are saying, this is what I accept. This is what I will not allow into my life. And in doing so, you attract people who respect and appreciate you rather than those who seek to take advantage of your willingness to bend. There is a certain energy that comes with a person who enforces their boundaries with quiet confidence. They don't need to explain why they won't tolerate disrespect. They don't need to justify why they are walking away from toxic situations. They don't need to convince others that their limits are valid. Their actions speak for themselves. When you have strong boundaries, you naturally eliminate people and situations that drain you. You don't find yourself in cycles of resentment because you're constantly saying yes when you mean no. You don't feel the need to prove yourself to people who don't value you. And that freedom, the ability to live life on your terms, is one of the most attractive and commanding qualities a person can possess. Boundaries are an extension of self-respect. And when you respect yourself, others follow your lead. You show people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When you communicate your limits clearly and consistently, you become someone who is not only respected, but also deeply valued. Because a person with strong boundaries is someone who knows their worth. And that kind of presence is impossible to ignore. Silence is powerful. In a world that never stops talking, in a culture that rewards those who speak the loudest, silence stands out. It commands attention in a way that words often fail to. It creates space for depth, for presence, for understanding. And those who master silence, those who know when to speak and when to hold back, those who are comfortable with pauses, with stillness, with quiet observation, those people hold an undeniable strength. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill every gap in conversation, to prove their knowledge, to assert their presence. They mistake speaking for power and volume for influence. They assume that if they are not talking, they are not leading, they are not important. But in reality, the person who can sit in silence, who does not need to fill every void with noise, who listens more than they speak, often holds the most control in any situation. Silence is not passive. It is intentional. It is the space where real understanding happens. When you are silent, you observe. You hear not just what people say, but how they say it. You notice the shifts in tone, the pauses that reveal hesitation, the body language that contradicts spoken words. You see beyond the surface, beyond what is being presented, into the truth of a moment. And that ability to listen deeply, to read between the lines, to recognize what others miss, is a skill more valuable than any loud proclamation. People who master silence do not speak just to be heard. They do not talk to fill space or to satisfy their ego. When they do speak, it is with intention. Their words carry weight because they are not used carelessly. They understand that when speech is rare, it is more impactful. They don't waste time proving themselves through excessive explanations or defensive justifications. They let their presence, their actions, and their carefully chosen words do the work for them. Silence also creates mystery. In a world where oversharing is the norm, where people feel the need to document every thought, every opinion, every moment, a person who holds back, who does not reveal everything all at once, who is comfortable with restraint, becomes intriguing. They draw people in, not by giving away everything immediately, but by allowing curiosity to build. They create space for others to wonder, to engage, to seek out their thoughts rather than forcing them onto the world. There is also strength in silence during conflict. Most people react impulsively when challenged. They feel the need to defend themselves immediately, to argue, to prove their point. But the person who stays silent, who allows the weight of a moment to settle before responding, who does not let emotions dictate their reaction, often has the upper hand. They do not engage in unnecessary battles. They do not waste energy on words that will only escalate tension. Instead, they wait, they observe. And when they finally speak, they do so with precision, with clarity, with power. Silence is also the key to deep confidence. A person who is truly self-assured does not need to prove themselves through constant talking. They do not need to be the loudest in the room to feel significant. Their presence speaks for itself, and people recognize that. They feel it. They are drawn to it. Because in silence, there is a quiet certainty, a level of self-trust that cannot be faked. To master silence is to master presence. It is to be fully engaged in the moment without distraction, without the need to control or impress. It is to be intentional with words, to understand when speaking adds value and when it simply adds noise. It is to command respect, not through volume, but through depth. And in that mastery, there is an unshakable power, one that needs no explanation, no validation, no external approval.